Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of our podcast, English in the Right Rhythm. This is Eric, and today we're going to talk about a topic that's essential for anyone learning English: how and when to use do and does. This is a super common question and part of building present simple sentences, one of the first things we learn when we start studying the language. So if you've ever wondered about the difference between do you like coffee and does she like coffee, this episode is for you. I remember when I first started learning English, I used to get confused all the time. I would say things like, "Do she like music?" or "Does I work here?" And my teacher would just give me that classic, "Huh, look." But don't worry, once you understand the logic behind do and does, it all starts to make sense. So let's begin with the basics. Do and does are used to form questions and negatives in the simple present tense. The key here is to pay attention to the subject of the sentence. If we're talking about I, you, we, or they, we use do. Now, if we're talking about he, she, or it, we use does. Simple as that. Let's look at some examples. Do you play soccer is correct because you takes do. But does he play soccer is also correct because he takes does. Notice how the verb play doesn't change, it stays the same in both sentences. What changes is the auxiliary verb. And that's where many people get confused. They try to add the s from the third person directly to the verb, like in does she plays. That's incorrect because when we use does, the main verb stays in its base form. So the correct sentence is does she play? The s from third person is already included in does. Got it? We'll go over this with lots of examples during the episode.
Hey everyone! This is Emma, and I loved Eric's introduction. It's so true, knowing when to use do and does is one of the first big challenges for English learners. And he's right, the key is to pay attention to the subject of the sentence. Let's go a bit deeper using everyday situations. Imagine you're getting to know someone and you want to ask about their habits. You might ask, do you live in New York or do you work from home? If you're asking about someone else, like that person's brother or friend, the structure changes. Does your brother live in New York or does your friend like music? See how the verb doesn't change? It stays in its base form. That's something that confuses a lot of people because in positive present simple sentences, we do add an s to the verb when the subject is he, she, or it. For example, she likes chocolate or he plays guitar. But when we make a question with does, we remove that s. So instead of does he plays, we say does he play? Another good trick is to practice negative sentences, which helps reinforce how do and does work. For example, I don't like pizza, you don't watch TV, we don't study on weekends, and so on. But when the subject is he, she, or it, we use doesn't. So we say, she doesn't like pizza, he doesn't watch TV, it doesn't work. Notice again how the verb remains in its base form. That's because the third person s is already present in the doesn't. This rule applies to both questions and negatives. Understanding this will help you avoid mistakes like she doesn't likes, which is incorrect. This logic is super useful, especially as you start practicing more natural conversations, like in job interviews, presentations, or casual chats. And remember, with practice, this becomes automatic.
That's perfect, Emma. You explained it really clearly. And building on what you said, I want to suggest a very simple exercise for everyone listening who wants to practice using do and does. Choose 5 common verbs, for example, eat, go, like, play, and watch, and try to create affirmative, negative, and interrogative sentences using different subjects. Let's use the verb play as an example. Affirmative, I play soccer, she plays soccer. Negative, I don't play soccer, she doesn't play soccer. Interrogative, do you play soccer? Does she play soccer? Just like that, you already have a solid base to practice with. And of course, you can do the same with other verbs. Another thing people often ask about is short answers. For example, if someone asks, do you like coffee? You can respond, yes, I do, or no, I don't. If the question is, does he work here? The answer would be, yes, he does, or no, he doesn't. These short answers are super useful in daily conversations, and they make your English sound a lot more fluent and natural. And here's something interesting. You never repeat the main verb in short answers. You always use do or does, depending on the subject. So don't say, yes, I like, or no, she not like that doesn't sound natural and could confuse your listener. Speaking of questions, it's also important to think about intonation. In English, the pitch of your voice usually rises at the end of a yes/no question. For example, do you work here? Your voice goes up at the end. It might seem like a small detail, but it makes a big difference in communication. So when practicing grammar, also try practicing your tone. A great way to do this is to stand in front of a mirror and read short dialogues aloud. Speaking of dialogues, Emma, what do you think about simulating a few mini conversations to help our listeners see how this all works in real life?
Great idea, Eric. Let's now take a more theoretical look to solidify our understanding of how do and does function grammatically. First, remember that both do and does are auxiliary verbs, also called helping verbs, used in the present simple tense. They assist the main verb to form questions and negatives but do not carry meaning on their own. Instead, they help construct the grammatical structure. As a rule, when the subject of the sentence is I, you, we, or they, we use do. When the subject is he, she, or it, we use does. That's the golden rule to follow. In affirmative sentences, you don't need do or does, but the verb itself changes when using third-person singular. For example, she works, not she work. However, in questions and negative sentences, the auxiliary comes in and the main verb returns to its base form, no matter who the subject is. That's why we say does he work and not does he works? The S from the verb is already expressed in the auxiliary does. In negatives, the structure is subject plus do/does plus not plus base verb. So we get sentences like I do not like or she does not go. Often, do not and does not are contracted to don't and doesn't, especially in spoken English. Another point that learners often overlook is the use of short answers and the importance of subject-verb agreement. For instance, yes, she does and no, I don't follow clear logic. The auxiliary repeats based on the subject. Incorrect replies like yes, she like break this agreement and can lead to misunderstanding. Understanding these grammatical rules also helps in error correction. For example, if a student says, he don't play tennis, you can quickly identify the mismatch between he and don't, it should be doesn't. A good practice is to break down each sentence into subject, auxiliary, verb, and identify whether the auxiliary matches the subject. This way, you train your brain to recognize the right combinations. By focusing on these core patterns and drilling them regularly, learners can internalize correct structures and gain confidence in speaking and writing accurately. Well, everyone, that's it for today. We hope this episode helped you understand when and how to use do and does in English. Keep practicing, keep listening, and most importantly, have fun learning. See you next time on English in the Right Rhythm. Bye-bye.